What if I told you some prisons are so terrifying? You'd wish you were never born? Today, we're diving into 17 female prisons that are worse than death. Places where women are starved, abused, ignored, and completely forgotten by the world. From the US to Russia, Iran to Madagascar, these are not just prisons. They're nightmares. And the craziest part? Some of these women haven't even been found guilty yet. Let's start our countdown with a prison so dangerous, even the US government called it a sexualized nightmare. Julia Tutweiler Prison is one of the most terrifying places for women in the US. It's a maximum security prison in Alabama, and it's known for being extremely unsafe. The prison is overcrowded, which means way too many women are packed into small spaces. But what's even worse is how the staff treats the inmates. Many reports say the guards have sexually abused the women there. There are stories of strip searches done for fun, guards watching the women shower, and people being harassed almost daily. The US Department of Justice even called it a sexualized environment. Imagine being in a place where you're supposed to be punished, but end up getting abused every day. But sadly, Alabama isn't the only place where women are suffering behind bars. Let's head to the UK for another disturbing example. Quintin Vale is a prison for women in Scotland, and it has a really bad reputation. It's known for being overcrowded, which means too many women are kept there without enough space, bathrooms, or basic facilities. Some women have to wait hours just to use a toilet. The food is often cold and not very healthy, but the worst part is how it affects the women's mental health. Many of them are struggling emotionally, and the prison doesn't offer enough help. There have been many reports of women harming themselves or even dying by suicide. It's a dark and depressing place that feels more like a punishment for being poor or mentally ill than for committing a crime. People have been asking the government to fix it for years, but the problems just keep coming back. Now let's look at a Russian prison that feels more like a labor camp than a correctional facility. This prison in Russia, called IK2, is basically a nightmare. It's a leftover from Soviet times and feels like something out of a horror movie. The women there are forced to work long hours, sometimes up to 12 hours a day, usually sewing clothes or uniforms. They sleep in huge rooms with up to 100 other women, with almost no privacy at all. The guards are super strict, and there are many reports of beatings and abuse. If you mess up even a little, you can get punished badly. The whole place feels cold, both physically and emotionally. It's not just a prison, it feels like a labor camp. Famous Russian political prisoners have spoken about how awful it is. There's no freedom, no dignity, and barely any human rights. From freezing cold Russia, we now travel to a tropical island nation where prison life is just as brutal, if not worse. Antanamora Prison in Madagascar is one of the worst places you can end up. It was built for a small number of people, but now it holds about 5 times more than it should. The prison is dirty, packed, and full of bugs and rats. The food situation is awful. Many women are starving, and nearly 40% of them are seriously undernourished. There's only one doctor for everyone, so if you get sick, you're pretty much on your own. Bribery runs everything. If you don't have money to pay guards or officials, you don't get medicine or decent food. Some women are thrown into solitary confinement, where they're completely alone and barely get anything to eat. Now imagine a place that calls itself a care home, but is really a nightmare for women. Welcome to Saudi Arabia's hidden shame. Don't let the name fool you. Dar al-Riaya care homes are not safe or caring. These are places where women and girls are sent if they're considered disobedient by their families or the government. That could mean anything from refusing a forced marriage to simply running away from home. Once inside, the girls are completely isolated. They're often beaten with whips, given heavy sedatives to keep them quiet, and are even forced to go through virginity tests. Privacy doesn't exist. Strip searches are common. And here's the worst part. They can't leave unless a male guardian gives permission. So even if they serve their sentence, they stay locked up if their father, brother, or husband says so. It's basically a prison built to control women under the excuse of care. And if you thought that was terrifying, wait until you hear what's happening behind closed doors in a Chinese women's prison, Guangdong. Women's prison in China might not look terrifying on the outside, but inside it's a whole different story. Women are forced to work in textile factories, sewing for long hours under pressure. If you don't work fast enough, you can get punished. Medical care is almost impossible to get, and many inmates say their health problems are ignored. They rarely get to see their families, and even letters or calls can be blocked without reason. There's also a big problem with racism and discrimination, especially against women from minority groups. The prison doesn't let outsiders know what's really going on, so everything is kept secret. Women there are treated more like machines than people. Now let's head back to the US, where one modern prison is more chaotic and deadly than you can imagine. Trousdale Turner Correctional Center in Tennessee is supposed to be a modern prison, but it's a total disaster. Even though it's mainly for men, some women are locked up here too, and it's not safe for anyone. There are constant fights, riots, and violence between inmates, and sometimes the guards don't even step in. People have gotten seriously hurt, and some have even died. The US Department of Justice had to investigate the place because of all the chaos. There are also lawsuits from families who lost loved ones inside. Reports say the prison is poorly run, staff don't do their jobs properly, and medical help is either super slow or doesn't come at all. It's a place where safety doesn't exist. You're not just serving time, you're fighting to survive. But things are even darker in Syria, where some prisons are straight-up torture chambers. Saidnaya and Meza are two of the scariest prisons in the world. They're located in Syria and are run by the Assad regime, which is known for brutal rule. People aren't just locked up here. They're tortured, starved, and sometimes killed. Inmates are beaten, shocked, and even hung for days. There are stories of execution parties, where prisoners are taken out and never come back. Thousands of bodies have been buried in mass graves near these prisons. It's not about justice, it's pure terror. Most prisoners never get a trial, and some are jailed just for speaking out against the government. The conditions are so bad that many people go crazy or die from hunger. Let's move from war zones to Georgia, where one prison is filled with filth, humiliation, and no hope of help. Women's Penitentiary, number 5 in Rustavi, Georgia, is known for how badly it treats inmates. The prison is overcrowded, filthy, and full of awful smells. There aren't enough toilets, no proper cleaning supplies, and barely any privacy. Women are forced to go through strip searches, even when it's not needed. There are no proper sanitary products. So many inmates are forced to find other ways to deal with their periods. A lot of women say they feel humiliated every day. Foreign inmates like Bella Cully have shared stories of how hard it is in there. Being far from family, not speaking the language, and facing constant bullying or threats. The guards are rude, and there's very little medical help. Instead of helping women recover or change, the place breaks them down even more. But if you think things couldn't get worse, this next US prison was literally nicknamed the Abuse Club. FCI Dublin was supposed to be a safe prison for women in California, but it became one of the most abusive in the country. It got the nickname the Rape Club because so many prison guards were sexually abusing the inmates. Women were afraid to report anything because the people hurting them were the same ones in charge. Some guards would threaten the inmates or offer better treatment in exchange for favors. Eventually, a bunch of women spoke up and lawsuits started pouring in. The truth got out, and it shocked the whole country. The government finally shut the place down after realizing how deep the abuse went. It's terrifying to think that women were locked up for breaking the law, but the people in charge of them were doing even worse things. While that's horrifying, some women didn't even need to commit a crime to be locked up. Just being different was enough. These places weren't always official prisons, but they felt like ones, maybe even worse. The Magdalen laundries were buildings run by the church in Ireland, and the UK where women were sent if they were troublemakers. That could mean being too flirty, unmarried and pregnant, or even just being too independent. Once inside, women were forced to work super long hours, usually washing clothes or cleaning without pay. They weren't allowed to talk, have fun, or leave. Many were there for years, and their families were told they were gone for good. Some died inside and were buried without a name. Corston Vale was a real prison in the UK with similar vibes. Overcrowded, cold, and depressing. These places ruined lives and broke people down, just for being women who didn't fit in. Now let's talk about a place where women wait in silence, knowing their day of death could come at any moment. Being on death row is already scary, but for women, it's a whole other level of mental torture. There aren't that many women on death row, but the few who are live in almost complete isolation. They're stuck in tiny cells for 23 hours a day, with barely any human contact. Even when they shower or go to the bathroom, guards watch them. That kind of lack of privacy can mess with your head. Some women don't even know when they'll be executed. It's like waiting to die, but no one tells you when. The emotional pain is brutal. Some of them are mentally ill or were abused before prison, and now they're just left alone to suffer more. If that gave you chills, what happens in Iran's Karach prison will shake you to your core. Karach prison, located in Iran, is one of the most dangerous and overcrowded women's prisons in the world. It used to be an industrial chicken farm, but now it holds hundreds of women, including political prisoners and people arrested for protesting. The prison is filthy, cells are packed, there's barely any clean water, and disease spreads fast. The food is terrible, and many women get sick because there's almost no medical help. Inmates are often beaten or punished for speaking out, and there's almost no way to contact family. Women who talk about their rights or stand up for themselves are treated even worse. They're thrown in solitary, denied visits, or worse. Human rights groups have called out Karach many times, but the abuse continues. And inside Alabama's death row for women, things get even more hopeless and heartbreaking. Inside the already horrible Julia Tutweiler prison in Alabama, there's a part even worse: death row. This section is for women who've been sentenced to die, and the conditions are extreme. The cells are tiny and dark, and the women spend almost all day alone. They barely get to talk to anyone, which causes serious mental health problems. Some women lose their minds in that kind of silence and stress. What's worse is that even in this high-security area, sexual abuse from guards has been reported. Women are completely helpless, with no one to protect them. It's not just about waiting for death, it's about living every day in fear, with no hope, no support, and no escape. Let's go back to China, because sadly, Guangdong isn't the only province with abuse this bad. While Guangdong Women's Prison gets the most attention, a lot of other women's prisons in China are just as bad, or even worse. These prisons use something called re-education through labor, which is just a fancy way of saying forced labor. Women have to work long, tiring shifts making clothes, electronics, or other products. If they complain, they can be punished or isolated. There's also little care for their health. Pregnant women or those needing birth control don't get proper treatment, and their emotional needs are ignored. Many women suffer from depression and anxiety, but no one seems to care. Visits from family are rare, and communication is often blocked. It's like being erased from the world. And now, off to Brazil, where overcrowding and injustice go hand in hand for thousands of women. Women's prisons in Brazil, especially in places like São Luís and São Paulo, are overcrowded and rough. Way too many women are packed into tiny cells, sometimes sleeping on the floor. There's barely any clean water, and the bathrooms are disgusting. A lot of women don't even have basic hygiene supplies, like soap or pads. Medical care is almost impossible to get, unless it's a life or death emergency. Even though some people say women are treated slightly better than men in Brazil's prisons, it's still really harsh. What makes it worse is that many of the women in these jails haven't even gone to trial yet. They're just waiting. So they're stuck in horrible conditions for months or even years without being found guilty. Finally, let's look back at the legacy of one of Europe's most infamous women's prisons. Holloway Prison in the UK, now closed, was once the largest women's prison in Western Europe. But it had a dark history. A lot of women who ended up there weren't dangerous criminals. They were just poor, mentally ill, or struggling with trauma. Instead of getting help, they were locked up. The prison system didn't care about fixing their lives, only punishing them. A documentary on Holloway shows how badly women were treated, isolated, over-medicated, and ignored. There were stories of women who needed therapy or support, but got a prison cell instead. Sylvia, another older prison, had similar problems. These places were cold, harsh, and full of pain. Let us know in the comments which prison shocked you the most, or if we missed one that deserves attention. And if you want more powerful stories like this, hit the notification bell so you never miss a video.